The most shocking moment was not when she returned. It was the moment her own brother, Baraka, lunged at the faded paper in her hand, his eyes wild with a panic so deep it smelled like fear. "It's a lie," he screamed, his voice tearing through the humid afternoon air. 8 years they had believed her gone, erased, a useless memory. 8 years they had enjoyed the house, the land, everything their father left behind. But now, standing in the dusty compound of their home in Mombasa, Zawadi held the one thing that could destroy their perfect lie, their father's original, hidden will. And as Baraka's fingers clawed towards it, Zawadi did not flinch. She simply looked past him, to her mother whose face had crumbled like dry clay, and said, in a voice quieter than the rustling palm leaves, "Papa's words are here. And they name me." Baraka froze, his hand inches from the document. What would he do now that his greatest sin was laid bare for all to see? Our story begins not in luxury, but in quiet sadness. In a small village near Murang'a, Kenya, lived a girl named Zawadi. Her name meant gift, but to her family, she felt like a burden. It was the year 2015. Zawadi was 17, with a gentle smile and eyes that noticed everything but said little. Her older brother, Baraka, was loud and ambitious. Her younger sister, McKenna, was sharp and studying to be a nurse. And Zawadi? They said she was slow. Too quiet for school, too plain for a good marriage. Her mother, Wanjiru, would sigh and say, "Your hands are only good for hard work, child." Zawadi's heart ached, but she bottled the ache inside. The only person who saw Zawadi's light was her father, Mena. He was a kind carpenter with rough hands and a soft heart. "You have a strong spirit, my Zawadi," he would whisper to her when they were alone, carving small wooden birds together. "Like the baobab tree. Your roots grow deep where no one can see." He promised her that the family home, the one he built with his own earnings, would always be her safe place. But then, in late 2015, a terrible thing happened. Mena fell sick. The sickness was quick and fierce. Within 2 weeks, he was gone. Zawadi's world, already dim, went completely dark. The grief had not even settled when the family's mood changed. It was January 2016. Baraka and Aunt Shani, their father's sister, started having loud meetings behind closed doors. Zawadi would hear the words "property" and the papers. One afternoon, Baraka gathered everyone. "Father left us nothing but problems," he announced, not looking at Zawadi. "We must sell the house to pay debts." Zawadi remembered her father's promise. "But Papa said," she began. Her sister McKenna cut her off. "What do you know, Zawadi? Be quiet." They sold the house, the furniture, even her father's beloved carpentry tools. Zawadi felt a piece of her soul being sold with them. A month later, the solution arrived. "We have found you a great opportunity," her mother said, her smile not reaching her eyes. It was March 2016. They told Zawadi about a job in Saudi Arabia, working in a nice home, earning money to help the family. "You will make us proud," said Baraka, but his tone was final. It wasn't an opportunity, it was an eviction. They gave her a small, torn suitcase. There were no hugs, no real goodbyes. As the car drove her away to the airport, Zawadi pressed her face against the window, watching the house her father built disappear. The reality in Riyadh was a cold nightmare. The house was not nice. It was a prison. The family she worked for treated her like a machine. She woke at 4 a.m., scrubbed floors until her knees bled, cooked, cleaned, and was shouted at in a language she didn't understand. They called her stupid and slow. They paid her almost nothing, and when she asked for her wages, they would slap her hand away. At night, in her tiny, hot room, Zawadi would write letters home, pouring out her loneliness. She never got a single reply. It was as if she had truly vanished. But in the darkness, Zawadi's mind began to wake up. She was determined to understand. She listened closely to the Arabic words, repeating them silently as she polished silver. She found old English newspapers in the trash and, late at night, traced the letters with a stopped pencil. She learned numbers by studying the grocery bills. It was her secret rebellion. While her body was breaking, her spirit was building a fortress. Little did she know, this quiet learning was preparing her for a destiny far greater than anyone could imagine. Khaled offered her a new job, cleaning his small tech office in Dubai. It was a different world. People nodded at her. She had a day off. And here, Zawadi truly began to bloom. She listened to the programmers talk about codes and startups. During her breaks, she would practice typing on an old computer. Khaled noticed her curiosity and began leaving business books for her. "You have a keen mind, Zawadi," he once told her. For the first time in her life, someone saw her as a person who could think, who could learn. Her heart, once shattered, began to stitch itself back together with threads of hope. The turning point came on a scorching day in July 2018. Zawadi was hanging laundry when she heard a scream and a splash. The family's 3-year-old boy had fallen into the deep garden pool. Without a thought, Zawadi, who barely knew how to swim, leaped into the water. She thrashed and fought, her maid's dress weighing her down, but she managed to push the choking child to the edge. A visitor, a kind-faced man named Khaled, who was the employer's cousin from Dubai, saw the whole thing. He helped pull them both out. Later, he sought Zawadi out and thanked her. He saw the intelligence in her eyes, the strength in her silence. By 2022, Zawadi had started her own small business. With Khaled's advice, she registered Zawadi's Care Cleaners. She hired other women like her, lost and mistreated, and gave them fair pay and respect. She was becoming a leader. Yet, she still sent money home every month, a final thread of hope connecting her to her family. That thread was about to be viciously cut. One evening in October 2023, a message popped up on her phone by mistake. It was meant for her sister McKenna. As Zawadi read it, the words stopped. The message talked about finalizing the sale of the old property and said, since Zawadi is dead, her signature is not needed, dead. They had told the world she was dead. The shock was a physical blow. She stared at the screen, her blood turning to ice. The betrayal was now complete. And in that icy stillness, a fierce, unbreakable resolve was born. She knew what she had to do next. She would go home. But not for love. Not for forgiveness. She was going to take back what was hers, and the storm she would bring would shake her family's world to its very foundations. The most extreme event was not the will, but what happened after. As Baraka's hand hung in the air, frozen over the truth of their father's will, their mother, Wanjiru, let out a sound, a raw, animal-like wail of grief and guilt. She collapsed onto the dry earth of the Mombasa compound, clutching at the soil as if trying to bury herself. "Forgive me, Mena. Forgive me," she cried to the sky. The neighbors, who had gathered in silent fascination, now murmured with pity and shock. Zawadi stood firm, the legal document a shield in her hand. Baraka's anger shattered into desperate fear. He fell to his knees, not before the will, but before his sister. "Zawadi, please, we are your blood," he begged. But Zawadi's eyes were no longer those of a girl seeking love. They were the eyes of a woman who had seen the bottom of the world and climbed back up. What would she do with the family that had buried her alive? To understand this moment, we must go back 3 months. It was January 2024. In her elegant apartment in Dubai, Zawadi was no longer a maid. She was the CEO of Zawadi Care, a thriving service empire. The mistaken message about her death had been the final push. She hired a sharp Kenyan lawyer named Ms. Adra and began the quiet, legal fight of her life. Ms. Adra tracked down old records in Murange and Mombasa. She found the notary who had witnessed Mena's real will, a will he had entrusted to his brother, Uncle Jomo, for safekeeping. Uncle Jomo, ashamed of his silence all these years, gave the dusty envelope to Miss Adra. The truth had been waiting, like a seed in the dark, for Zawadi to come and claim it. Zawadi planned her return like a general. She did not buy a loud car or flashy clothes. Instead, she invested in something more powerful, knowledge and legality. She met with local chiefs and elders in her home area, presenting her documents. She wanted justice, not chaos. The elders, remembering her kind father and ashamed of her family's greed, promised their support. Zawadi's heart was calm but heavy. This was not the homecoming she had dreamed of as a child. This was a reckoning. The day arrived in late April. Zawadi landed in Nairobi, then drove to Mombasa where the family now lived in the house they had stolen, her father's second property. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress. Her hair was braided neatly. She looked like success, but felt like a storm inside. As her hired car turned onto the familiar, potholed road, her chest tightened. Every tree, every smell brought back memories, of her father's laughter, of her own silent tears. She took a deep breath. The quiet girl was gone. A warrior had come home. Her arrival was a shockwave. When the black car stopped, children playing football froze. Women selling mangoes at the roadside stall gaped. Is that Zawadi? But they said she died in Arabia. The whispers flew like bees. Zawadi stepped out and walked directly to the gate of the compound. Her mother, Wanjiru, was sweeping the yard, her face lined with years of bitterness. She looked up, and the broom fell from her hands. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was the look of someone seeing a ghost they had helped to create. "Mama," Zawadi said, her voice clear and steady. The word was a greeting, not a warm one, but a fact. Baraka and McKenna rushed out from the house. Their faces went from confusion to pale, trembling recognition. "Sister, you are alive." McKenna stammered, taking a step back as if facing a spirit. Baraka tried to summon his old authority. "Zawadi, you come back without warning. After all these years." But his voice cracked. Zawadi simply looked at them, one by one, letting the weight of their own guilt crush them first. Then she said, "We need to talk." Inside. Around the old wooden table where they had once shared meals, the air was thick with tension. Zawadi placed a bag on the table. She did not shout. She did not accuse. She simply began to speak. She told them of the years of backbreaking work, the loneliness, the letters they never answered. She spoke of learning to read in a dark storage room, of saving every coin. Her family listened, their eyes glued to the floor. They could not bear the sight of her strength. Then, she slid the brown envelope across the table. "This," she said softly, "is from Papa." That was when Baraka lunged for the will, leading to the shocking collapse and begging of Simwan. Now, with her mother sobbing on the ground and her brother kneeling, Zawadi finally moved. She helped her mother up, not with tenderness, but with a firm, unwavering grip. "Sit, Mama," she instructed. She looked at her brother. "Get up, Baraka. Your kneeling changes nothing." Her calm power was more frightening than any anger. She read the will aloud. Every word was a hammer strike. The house, the land, the savings, all left to Zawadi, his wise and faithful heart. The truth was out. The law was on her side. Zawadi saw the defeat in their eyes. But then, she did the unexpected. "You will not be thrown out," she announced. A flicker of hope lit in her mother's eyes. Zawadi continued, "You will move into the 2 rooms in the servant quarters behind the main house. You will live there. You will learn what it means to depend on the mercy of the one you once thought was only good for servitude." It was not cruelty. It was the most profound lesson she could give. Justice, silent and graceful. The final extreme event was one of transformation, not destruction. 6 months later, in October 2024, the main house was no longer just a home. Zawadi had turned it into the Mena Safe House, a bright sanctuary for returning migrant workers who had suffered abuse abroad. The garden was full of vegetables, the rooms clean and safe. Zawadi stood at the gate, watching a young woman from her shelter, once broken, now laughing while learning to sew. Her own family, living simply in the back, now understood the value of dignity. Baraka helped with repairs. Makena helped teach basic first aid. Her mother, Wanjiru, finally looked at her daughter not with shame, but with a dawning, awestruck respect. Zawadi had taken everything back, but she had given something greater in return, a legacy of healing. The girl they called useless had not just reclaimed the house, she had built a kingdom of hope from the ashes of their rejection. And her story, which began in a whisper, was now a song of triumph that would echo for generations. Kindly subscribe to our channel and share it with loved ones. Thanks for watching.